All right, hello, welcome to Court of the Rings on twitch.tv/LotraStream. Thanks for being here. Today we've got some information. We got a whole bunch of cool things happening in game, a ton of news. I think this is really just going to be an all-news show because we've got a ton of things happening. This is the final weekend for a whole bunch of things as well, and we're having a very exciting preview happening. Our first preview took place this week. There's just a couple hours left of it today, so this was sort of the end of the preview cycle here for this first preview of Update 36. But we went live with our first preview of Update 36 on Bull Roarer this week, and to talk about some of the features that are in Update 36, I've got a couple of guests with me. So, to start off with, I've got Vastin, who, really nice to have you on the show here today. It's been a little while, I think, since we last had you on.
Yeah, a little while. How's it going?
Yeah, it's going good, going good. Let me actually lower, where do I have this now? Let me make sure I get you on camera. There we go. I've called up just a little bit of the release notes for Bull Roarer here, and you can find the Bull Roarer preview thread over in our new Lotro forums. And I've got it called up to talk a little bit about the Paths of Valor. So we're bringing the landscape difficulty system that was on Treebeard and Shadowfax to the live servers here with Update 36, and it's got a few bells and whistles to it as well, as I understand it. How different is what's coming in U36 compared to what they might have seen over on the Legendary Worlds?
So, in terms of how the system itself works and the difficulties it presents, it's very similar. As it seemed to work pretty well on Treebeard and so on. So we've added a little bit more variety to the effects that can occur while you're fighting monsters, but statistically, it's pretty much the same. The big difference is we've added a new reputation
Okay.
to the Paths of Valor that goes along with it. And so when you are fighting at difficulty 3 or higher, you can earn tokens when you kill monsters, as long as they're like your level or above. And that can be used to advance the Paths of Valor and earn rewards from them.
So we've talked about people who might be familiar with the landscape difficulty system on Shadowfax and Treebeard, but let's say I don't know anything about this because I just haven't been paying attention, or I didn't care because I wasn't playing on those worlds. This is an optional system to begin with. You don't have to do any of this sort of thing. You can just have your landscape experience like you're used to if you want to. But what is this thing and what's it going to do?
Okay, so in order to turn the system on, you need to find the Hardened Traveler, who is a shady ranger-looking fellow. He can be found in most of the newbie areas and in a couple of the major hubs, like outside the Prancing Pony, I think in the 21st Hall, and a few others. When you talk to him, he offers you a range of quests, which represent the different difficulty levels that you can undertake. You take that quest, complete it, and voila, it's on. And from that point on, as you travel the lands of Middle-earth, the monsters are a lot nastier, depending on where you went with that.
So we see
So yeah,
difficulty 1 adventurous all the way up to difficulty 9 heroic +2. Um, how much are we talking about? What level of raffle stomping are we talking about here?
so I think for the average player, difficulties 1 and 2 will just make it a little more dicey on landscape, but not really substantially harder. Once you get up to 3, that gets pretty tough. Like if you're not pretty well geared and know how to play your character, you can definitely die on landscape pretty easily with a bad pull or just making some significant combat mistakes. Up past that, you better be really well geared and know what you're doing. Honestly, once you get to heroic difficulty and up, you're expected to be in a group on landscape.
Okay, I was going to ask that this is aimed not just at solo players clearly, but also group players for these higher difficulties in particular.
Yep, and for the medium difficulties, taking a small group, maybe even if you're a casual player, you can do that as a small group and handle it.
So why would I want to do this? What do I get for it?
Uh, I mean, the main purpose behind it is simply to make that aspect of the game more challenging. Like there are parts of our game that are quite challenging, our raids and our high-end instances and so on, but the landscape generally really quite easy, and some players prefer that it be tougher. and some don't. So this is a nice optional way to just address that, so that the players who really want more of a landscape challenge can get it through this system. The other one now, however, is the Paths of Valor, which offers a set of rewards. The rewards right now are mainly emotes, calling them epic emotes. They're really very gussied up, fancy versions of some emotes you might know already, but with some much more fun effects and sounds associated with them.
Yeah, I see an epic lecture, epic flex, epic bow, epic coin flip, epic succumb. What makes it epic?
So if you bring up your collection panel, you should actually be able to see a
Oh,
few
right,
of
right.
these,
Yeah.
hopefully.
Yep.
Because a video is worth, I don't know, picture's
Uh,
worth 1,000 words. How much is a video worth?
will it show up under epic? It will. All right.
It should.
All right. Now let me resize the window here. All right. So here's the epic bow. Oh, let me move that center
Yeah.
screen.
I'm not quite sure which version of these they're going to be. Oh, this might be slightly too old. We got a bunch of new effects just
Okay.
the other day, but some of it is in there. So the coin flip in particular, that's one of my favorites. It adds a glowing effect to the coin, and some nice shine, and it adds an actual coin that appears above your head that is in fact random. So you can use it for in-game coin flips.
I don't think our epic flex is working yet.
So
Yep.
actually, what I'm seeing here is that this build is a little too old.
Yeah.
These are first versions that were not really complete. So we're
Okay.
not going to get too much out of
Okay,
them.
yeah, let's not get too much into it. So, what kind of reward is this? The intention of the kind of reward, like emotes, cosmetics, that kind of thing, rather than say static gear?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, for people who are running the difficulty system, they're generally already well geared, well statted. They're badass. So it doesn't it leans more towards bragging rights type rewards as opposed to actual like hit harder rewards.
Okay, so how do I get these heroes marks?
Okay, so the heroes marks when you once the system is active, you have to be at T3 or above, and you have to be fighting monsters on landscape who are your level or above. And every time you get a kill, you have a chance to earn one of those tokens. And then there are 3 weekly tasks also offered by the Hard Traveler. You can't see them here yet. That you can turn these tokens in for, and that will advance your rep and also give you some of the barter currency, which I believe are the heroes marks. Um,
Yeah.
that will let you get those other things.
So I haven't picked a difficulty yet. I'll probably pick difficulty 3, and there's a specific reason I'm looking at 3 for the purposes of the live stream, and that's because it opens up a Sauron's Eye effect, as I understand it. What's Sauron's Eye?
Right. So once you're at difficulty 3 or higher, you will occasionally draw your arrogance will draw the Eye of Sauron upon you. So during battle, at just random times, it'll appear on you, and it usually lasts for 30 seconds to a minute, depending on how much you're fighting. While it's on you, monsters you're fighting can suddenly become enraged and get rage effects, and occasionally you'll get a ground effect occurring as well, like a pillar of fire type threat that you have to get out of before it goes off. I just added one that will heal the monsters, so you have to pull them out of it. So it forces you to be more mobile and more aware of your surroundings on landscape.
And what kind of direction do you? I mean, is it just a matter of kind of trial and error to figure out how to mitigate this sort of thing, or is there's some hint or something like that?
So it's quite obvious when a monster gets one of the enraged effects on it, because it's a big colored aura around it, representing which of the enraged. There are a couple different kinds of enraged they can have. Most of them can be removed with corruption removal abilities, so they're corruptions.
Okay.
Or you can deal with them, uh, by outfighting the monster, depending on what it got. But it does make them quite a bit more difficult. So if you're in a group, for example, you might have to decide whether you're going to focus one of those monsters down.
The reason I've got this UI element still up on the screen is I figured this is a good time to talk a little bit about how it's going to work for level gating in the deeds and things like that. What can anybody do, regardless of their level on the live world, and what do they need to do really before they hit level 11?
Oh, okay, right. So this actually goes back to the original rewards for the system, which are still there as well. Which is that if you turn the difficulty system on, I think it has to be, again, at least T3, and you turn it on before level 11, so somewhere between 1 and 10, and leave it on all the way up through level 50 and then up through level 130, you can earn titles based on your character, what your character's class, and the difficulty you were playing at. Those titles can then be used on any character on your account, but it kind of proves that you made it, most of the way or all the way through the game with the difficulty system turned on.
And you need to leave it on. I mean, it doesn't matter if you
Yeah,
get
you need to
defeated
leave
and
it on the
stuff.
whole way.
You
You
have
need
to
to leave
leave
it
it
on the whole
on.
way. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
defeat's fine. Defeat's expected, but you have to leave the system on the whole time. Now, there are a few little quirks to the system in terms of how it behaves when you go into instances and so on. Most solo instances, it will stay on, but if you turn on delving difficulty, that overrides the system and it will turn itself off. If you go into a group instance, I think with 3 or more, it should turn itself off. If you go into the Ettenmores PvP, it will turn itself off. So it won't be active in any of those circumstances. That won't affect your deeds either. It's only if you actively go to the Hardened Traveler and turn it off that it can potentially fail that way.
So, how does it work if you're in a group on landscape, whether fellowshipped or not, and you've got sort of difficult mobs around you?
So different players in a group can actually be at different difficulty levels. There's some people could have the system off. Some people could have it at T3. Some people could have it at T7. The system affects how the player interacts directly with the monsters. It doesn't really change the monsters themselves because the monster could be fighting any number of different people. So it actually works fine in that context. You can have the one person who's on easy street and one person who's at T9 and is going to be in real trouble. Um,
So it
Generally
won't.
speaking,
So in general, there are effects to the player, not effects to the group in terms of, say, the difficulty. But I mean, the
yeah.
morale's going to go up in that, wouldn't it? Or is the morale not really scaled?
Monster morale doesn't change. The amount of damage you're capable of doing to them changes.
Okay.
And the amount of damage they'll do to you changes quite a lot.
Yeah, I think we're already seeing these carrion crows doing a couple of hits on me here.
Right.
Yeah.
Normally these mobs are like almost entirely trivial, and here they're actually doing some damage to you.
Yeah, and that was
They do more.
at least partially by design. Let's see. Oop, that's not the right one. Where do I have my? Here we go. All right, I'm just calling up the Paths of Valar section in the Bull Roar release notes to see if there's anything else we really need to bring up. Otherwise, I'd like to turn it over to the community here, and let's see what kind of questions you have for Vastin about the landscape difficulty system first. And then we'll do a little Q&A, and then we're going to bring on someone else to talk about some other things that were in this Bullroar preview. So, good opportunity if you're in our chat room and have a question about this landscape difficulty system arriving on the live game worlds with Update 36. Now's a good time to get those questions answered, so let's see them in chat. This does mean, though, that let's say you've got a level capped character. You're going to probably want to create an alt or something to lock it in to get the titles if that's your intention, right?
Yeah, if you want the titles, you'll want to start a new character and run it up through the game. Great excuse to grab a group of friends and see how high you can go with an actual group environment on landscape.
I didn't happen to check. Are these heroes tokens bound to character, bound to account?
The heroes tokens, the ones that allow you to complete the tasks are character. I don't remember whether the actual barter currency is bound. I'm not going to answer that one because I don't remember. And
okay, yeah, we'll have to.
and I have to figure it out.
Yep. All right. Been watching, but forgot to put the stream on your laptop for chat. Okay, if you're under. Sorry, that's not a question. You can't acquire the titles on existing characters over level 11. Yeah, we just mentioned that.
Yep.
I guess maybe it's a lot more explanatory than. And I'm not seeing a lot of questions here. Will there be rewards for current level cap characters once the level cap is increased, or are the titles rather for new characters? The titles are for newer characters here, right?
Yeah, the titles are for new characters. However, the rest of the reward system will work just fine for a currently capped character, which is one of the reasons we wanted it in there, so that they had fun stuff to go for.
Yeah.
let's see. One interesting little quirk. So earning the tokens on landscape to advance the tasks is done by fighting monsters of your level and above. Um, it's based on who gets the kill, but it does allow the entire group to check, or I should say, at fearless difficulty, all the fearless difficulties, you can be in a group of up to 3, and all earn tokens for each other's kills. At heroic difficulty, you can actually be in a group of up to 6 on landscape and potentially earn tokens for each other's kills.
So basically, once the enemy's killed, it's like who all was in the group?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, they have to be, reasonably close together and in a fellowship.
Okay. Okay. Can it be used in classic instances like Moria and CD?
If the instances can be run solo, yes. But if it's actually like set to be a 3-man plus instance, it will turn itself off even if you're the only one in there.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Because it's an instance, right? These aren't instances, just landscapes, right?
Yeah. Well, so the system will stay on for some like story instances and things like that.
Okay.
Pure solo content. It depends a little bit on exactly how the instance was set up.
Okay.
So,
is it possible if you're, say, open tapping that you're going to be hurting someone else's experience? Like, for example, would they suddenly get much higher difficulty mobs?
no.
Yeah.
Nope. The one thing that a non-difficulty player might notice is if the monster gets an enrage, for example, that would affect everyone fighting it. However, it would still only have the statistics of a normal monster on landscape other than the enrage, so it wouldn't have all the other aspects of difficulty that the other players would be dealing with based on their settings. So, not really too big a deal.
What if you're set to a raid group on a landscape? I know that actually, I know that there was. I would actually need to remind myself where we are on that, but
Yeah, so this system really doesn't care too much about that. It cares that you're in a fellowship. And as I was saying, it will, at Fearless, you can share the rewards for up to 3 players, and at Heroic, you can share the rewards for up to 6 players. It won't share to a raid.
okay.
We really don't want to encourage raids on Landscape most of the time. They're kind of cute, but they're really harsh on performance.
Does the difficulty system impact XP and loot drops for characters?
You get a small XP bonus for having the system on at all, and a small Virtue XP bonus, which people are particularly fond of, I believe. So yes, it does. It's not dramatic. It's more to help make up for the fact that it takes longer to kill monsters in it than it is to like really speed up your advancement.
All right. Currently, on the other worlds, there are some Tier 1 titles that are not present on Bull Roar. Do you know what they might be referencing there?
No, I am not sure what they're referencing. The titles have not changed, or how the titles work have not changed from Greybeard to here.
Okay.
Or shouldn't have changed. If they have, we should figure that out real quick and fix it before we go live.
Yeah, we are. I mean, this is on the Bull Roar public preview server in an incomplete state, so that sounds like something that would be worth maybe filling out a bug report so it can get to QA's attention and what have you.
I don't think Legendary Item XP is affected. It might be affected the same way as regular XP, but I don't think so.
I was going to call this out as a separate news item, but since we're talking about Legendary Item XP, I should mention this is the final week of the Legendary Item reward track. We have our next season debuting next week, so make sure in the coming week here, a little less than a week here, that you pick up all your rewards for your existing reward track if you haven't done that yet. You want to make sure you get that stuff before the new one arrives. Otherwise you lose it, so... do we have any other questions here? Otherwise, I think I'm going to move on. I don't see anything. So, all right. Vastin, anything else you want to mention here before I move on?
No, I think I covered most of the big points there. Yeah, I hope people enjoyed the system and use an excuse to group up on Landscape and have some fun.
Yeah, Sounds great. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me here. And let me cut your camera real quick. Um, there we go. And we're going to bring out another guest here in just a second. While he's getting set up here, I just wanted to mention we do have a few other bits as well. This is your final weekend for the Homesteads and Harvest Coffer. This is a special item. Oh, that's not the right one. I have too many display captures. There we go. Homesteads and Harvest Coffer, available for a limited time. This is through the weekend. Sunday's the last day of this. So if you want to pick up this stuff, this is your chance. So you can find more information about it over on Locher.com. Tons of housing items and things like that. I know that we did a lot of promotion of it for the last week, so I'm not going to repeat myself here, but I do want to mention that's only available through the 14th. So only available through Sunday here. And that's not too much time. So please do. Please do. If you're interested. All right. Orion, if I could get you to turn on your camera. And I believe if everything worked out. Oh, almost. Let me reposition you on camera here live. I'm trying to use Discord for purposes it was not aught meant. There we go. Hi, Orion. How you doing?
Oh, allergies are kicking my butt, but aside from that, things are pretty good.
Yeah, I don't know. I assume in your neck of the woods, you're not that far away from me. There's
6 inches of pollen everywhere.
You could call it tree pea, but it's yellow and granular, and it's covering everything. I've got, literally a 16-inch layer over everything. The house, the car, the whole house.
Pretty bad right now.
All right, so we are here to talk a little bit about some of the PvMP work that is in Bull Roar. I don't have my character set up to really just show that off on stream here today. I was working on some other preview material, so we might just sort of put up a different background screen or something like that. But in the Bull Roar release notes, you can see that there's a bunch of things happening with the Ettenmoors and PvMP, and we have a bunch of breakout threads to collect feedback on that. A lot of things that we could actually get to, because we've got sieges, infamy, renown, commendation changes, loot box refresh, and some kind of assistance style changes as well. So why don't we just sort of start with an overview. What's the deal? Why we got so much PvMP in this?
I wish I knew. So I don't really spend a ton of time inside of Monster Play, even though it seems like I do. The siege thing was something that we came up with over the winter break, and it's something that we originally wanted to do way, way, way back in the day when Monster Play was first conceived. The tech is there now to do a lot of the different aspects of it without having to go too deeply into the big battle system. So we've kind of divorced the whole big battle system from what we're doing out in the Ettenmoors for Siege and making it so that it's a very streamlined experience. The Bull Roar is a very early test on it, and if it's not ready for going out, it's not going to ship with the next update. It will end up moving out to a future update. It might be one of the dot updates between now and the next release after, but we want to make sure that it's actually in a really good state when we push it out the door. We don't want it to be something that is overly hacked together or additionally difficult than more difficult than it really should be, because it should be something that is more entertaining and it drives more direct player agency in the Ettenmoors as a whole. What we're trying to do is to not completely eliminate a lot of the existing NPCs that are at the hold positions out in the Ettenmoors, but we are trying to reduce them to a point where they are no longer the primary objective or the primary deterrent to taking those different places. So that's kind of where Siege came from. It was the notion that originally we wanted to have these type of things that were available in the Ettenmoors, where there was you would get a location and be able to hold it, and then the other opposition would have to try to find a way to wrest that from your control.
Yeah, sort of the traditional, almost like tower defense that you see, control point type stuff that you see in a lot of games.
Yes, exactly.
How's that differ from this then? If it's not like a control point thing, what is it?
Well, it is a control point thing.
Okay.
That isn't changing at all. So that's already been how the Ettenmoors has existed since its inception. is it has these take and hold positions that you get benefits for actually keeping. So we are just changing the way that you get into them. Previously, there were upwards, I think, of like 60 NPCs at those locations to try to slow players and monster players down, and now we're just putting in really tough doorways or gates, and then the siege equipment that you use to actually push that out. There are some changes that we've already kind of decided we need to do based off of the initial feedback that we got in the first day or two of Bull Roar. The biggest one probably being that the doors, we made the decision to make them completely accessible to a player who, to the player side that currently controls the keep. So you could walk in and out of the door without any difficulty. It's a little break of immersion because you're just bouncing in and out of a closed door. So that was one thing that was brought up. So we're probably going to end up moving an NPC or an object into one of the adjacent towers, where you'll have to climb up to that location and then use the object or the NPC to get into the tower proper. Now that will mean that will be turned off as soon as you get into combat, so that you can't cheese the whole situation. But once you're inside, there'll be another way to egress out, but it will put you back in that same spot. So you'll be able to bounce from one spot to another, which is why this is very likely not going to end up seeing getting in immediately.
Okay, so this
Because there are
may
some
not
changes.
make it into the formal like day of update 36
Yeah,
release.
yeah, yeah. There's a very good chance that we'll be turning Siege off just to ensure that it percolates and it's got the right taste and flavor when we actually push this out the door.
So I want to make sure we're talking not just to the existing veteran PvMP community, but also people who are like, well, sieges might get me in there. What
Mm-hmm.
if I could control a catapult or ballista and use it against my enemies, that sounds pretty cool. That's the core of it, right?
It's
You're getting the resources necessary to build this thing, and then it kind of works as an auto turret of sorts or something like
yes.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, and the way that you earn that is through commendations, which is the traditional currency that's out in the Ettenmoors. So you do the quests that exist in the Ettenmoors, you get the commendations that are used to then purchase the schematics that you can utilize at these special locations to build either a catapult, a ballista, or battering rams. And of course, battering rams are really for the doors, and the catapults are what kind of ring the area. We had originally wanted to push this in for all three of the major take and hold locations, which are Lugazag, Tirith Raw, and Tolascarnan. But when I took a step back, I said, "All right, let's do the right thing here and look at Tirith Raw first and Lugazag and get those to a position where they're solid." And then when we eventually get to Tolascarnan, there's probably going to be another larger change to that particular area of the landscape to incorporate the siege aspect of everything. But I don't want to spend all the time on siege because there are other big changes that are coming to the Ettenmoors, and probably the biggest one,
Yeah, right,
it,
right.
yeah, probably the biggest one is the change to um, how infamy, renown, and commendations are earned.
Yeah, let me call that
Because
up real quick.
for a long time in the game, there has been a benefit to getting into a raid and then going out and defeating the other players that are out there. And the reason that there's been a benefit is that there was actually a multiplier that was set for individuals inside of a raid. So when you were inside of a raid, it was actually like when we went through it, when Anamem and I went through it, we found that there was almost a 168% bonus on every kill that a raid got that was then split amongst the entire raid, which means that raids were getting a really large amount of infamy, renown, and commendations. Um, Raid play is fine. It's going to happen. It's partly necessary, especially when you're talking about taking difficult locations. Although with the strength that we've actually set a lot of the different monsters to that are defending keeps, it really is meant more for a full fellowship. So
Okay.
we've revised the way that the the infamy, renown, and commendation earns will actually happen inside of raids, and there's actually now it's not a penalty; it's just a much lower contribution for everybody that is involved in one of the kills. So there is a breakpoint that is more beneficial, and that happens right around a full fellowship. Full fellowship, you will get a slight bonus, and then once you go beyond a full fellowship, that number starts to drop off. The same is also true if there are a number of contributors to an individual player's defeat, so that it's not beneficial for 20 people to gang up on one. We're trying to push more of um, the group. I don't want to say the group, the fellowship versus fellowship, or the small raid versus small raid style of play. Another big change is rank. So rank actually has this. Uh, Rank was initially made to track out to about 7 years of play every night for about 2 hours. And if you do the math actually correctly shows that if you do this and you're fighting against the same style of player over and over again, that it would take you about 7 years to get to rank 15. That is, obviously, we surpassed that ages ago, and now there are a lot of players that are well over that. And there's also, we know that there are people who abuse that system because you can log in on one side and then log another character on the other side.
Yeah.
So what we're looking at doing is changing the way that rank actually contributes to the overall value of an individual kill. So this is another part of this, where if you are a brand spanking new player out in the Ettenmoors, whether you're a monster player or a regular player, first time out there, you're trying to de-incentivize beating you into submission, right? What we're trying to do is say the higher ranks should get far less for killing lower ranks. There's no reason that higher ranks should be hunting down, as they're referred to in the Ettenmoors, greenies, right? We don't want that kind of play to be inspired. So what we're trying to do is reduce the overall contribution, or reduce the overall value of those newer players who are out in the Ettenmoors, those lower rank players, and then increase the actual value of those higher rank players. So that's another change that we made. And that's already been in testing, and we're starting to see some of the response on that too.
All right. Before we get to loot stuff, actually, here we go. What do we mean by assistance from? What's up with this thread? So we got some.
Yeah. So there were two quests that were moved when the elf camp and the orc camp were moved ages ago. For On the player side, First Marshal On, and on the monster player side, Tyrant Oozlethrang. Those, when we moved the elf camp and the orc camp back to their original positions, Oozlethrang and On were both kind of left out in the cold. Oozlethrang was actually pushed out of the game completely. He just decided he was going to go retire back up in Angmar. And then somebody said, hey, we need you on the battlefield. Get back in the game. So Oozlethrang's been added back to the orc camp, and On has been improved significantly on the elf camp.
Okay.
Now, when you complete those quests, the corresponding NPC will assist you in taking back the central keep of Tulisgarnen. They are so strong now that they can get pretty much from the outskirts all the way into the main body of the keep without much difficulty.
All right.
That does not mean that they can take the keep. If you allow them to try to go all the way to the end, they will still get slaughtered. But they are definitely now a better help when you are going into that space. And then the other thing that changed is Goldhead, who is the Morningthaw, the leader of the Morningthaw Bears, who is near Tirith Ra, and Mazok, who is the leader of the Shadowfang Wargs, who is near Lugazag, have also gotten a little bit tougher, so that when you utilize them to try to take either Tirith Ra on the east, or Lugazag in the west, they have a better opportunity, or they have a more chance to actually assist you on taking those locations. And the reason that we're doing that is to try to incentivize players to try to push beyond the bounds of Glainvreg and Graham's Foot. There are other changes that are in the works that aren't going to make it in for 36, but will likely be in either 37 or a future update after that, where we will start to reduce the amount of infamy and renown and commendation urns immediately surrounding Graham's Foot and Glainvreg, so that you end up being completely de-incentivized from pushing against those. And then we're going to try to incentivize moving around the Ettenmoors, very likely to the outposts, and then moving to keeps, and towers having some kind of an actual benefit beyond what they currently give. So maybe it'll be access to special nodes, maybe it'll be access to just special dungeon spaces, or something that will allow you to get an added benefit for controlling those locations at any given time.
All right.
And then, wow,
We should talk about loot quick. So I know
Sure.
loot boxes can be a little bit of a controversial subject, but we have some new stuff happening with loot boxes and PvMP, so it's definitely worth talking about here. So what do we got going on?
So when I first got back, I made somewhere around 20 new skins for every single race and class for the monster players. And I haven't had the opportunity really to push those in and move them around in the game at this point. So we knew that there was a refresh coming up on loot boxes in general. And part of that, I said, well, I want to update the monster player ones as well. So I said, okay, let's go through and make some more. So there are now upwards of 40 skins that will be available for every single one of the monster classes. Some actually are over 50. We'll be swapping these in and out over time so that you'll be able to get more and more, and newer ones will come online. We also had made a switch to March, which is the speed skill that allows the monster players to move around the Etmors in the same fashion that a player would actually use their mount. And now, and we had put a giant boot over the monster players' heads, and there was some outrage about that. So we decided we'd pull that off and turn that into more of the traditional speed boost that the hunter gives when you're running, or when they have their speed boost on. But I went one step further and said, well, this is a nice little VFX opportunity for us to put in a new cosmetic. So you can actually find a cosmetic version of that that will change what appears underneath your feet as you're running in the Edinburghs, and it just swaps out the VFX that's on your specific March skill. So that's another thing that's available inside of the loot boxes now. But we revised the loot boxes to no longer have this weird jackpot mechanic where sometimes you would get an extra an extra loot pull. Now you actually get 3 loot pulls every single time, one from each of the different treasure grouping profiles, and the best one that you can get is as a monster player is a free point of audacity, 2 free points of audacity, 15 25 captain's marks, 15 martial marks, or I might have those flipped. And then you can get 1,000 commendations, 1,500 commendations, or a selection box that allows you to choose from any one of the cosmetics that are being added. And that includes 2 new skins for each of the the monster player characters, two one-handed weapons that you can use in your cosmetic slots, a staff cosmetic slot, a shield cosmetic, a range cosmetic, and did I already say shield? A shield cosmetic.
Yeah.
And then of course the four new March cosmetics that change those out. And each of those has an equal chance of dropping, so it's about a little over 14% chance to get any one of those in specific. And then there are the other two chest pulls that happen, which can give you up to commendations and the potions that exist on the Edmores as well.
So you were saying that a lot of this was kind of made in one big go, and in some ways on these cosmetics. Can we expect to see kind of ongoing new cosmetics get rolled out here?
I would love to start doing these on a very base cadence where we push them out. I don't want to say seasonally, but if we can push them out every 2 or 3 months to get to build up more and more of these, so that players have access to more and more of the actual cosmetics that exist. Because we can continue to make a lot of them based off of what is still available inside of the game, and there's a lot that are still available that haven't actually been made. I'm using the word available like crazy, but that haven't been made available to the players at this point. So there is a very good chance that we will continue to update the loot boxes moving forward, so that they can get more and more.
I guess before I sort of move it over to general public questions, and this is a great time to get us your questions if you're interested. For a little over a year, maybe even a little longer. We've been doing a bit of a rejuvenated push on PvMP in general, and have you been seeing some positive result from the things that you were looking for? I know that in some ways it started as well. Let's see if we can make some changes here. Are we seeing the kind of changes that you were hoping for?
We're getting there. So when I first got back and was able to jump into the Edmores, there was a very good chance that the Edmores was just going to be, just left alone from this point forward and not updated, and just turned into just not, I don't want to say a dead part of the game, but an unsupported part of the game. And I think that a lot of Monster players might suggest that it's been a rather unsupported part of the game for quite a while, but
Yeah.
I have a passion for it. I mean, obviously, it's something that I initially created with the other small members of the team that were there back when we first started it, and I've been able to work on it and get it to a point where I think Onlin and I have got it to a place where we feel much better. And we know that there are players who are engaged. We know that there are players who have remained engaged in the system since its inception. We know that there are more players who are interested in it. And we know that there's still some things that there's some changes that we need to make to improve it even more. Some of those changes are ways to incentivize getting players out there without having to go through the daunting task of getting the gear that's really necessary to survive. And part of that is building out gear that is better for everyone at the outset, or finding a way to remove that. The problem there is that the balance between the two sides is very difficult, just because of decisions that have been made over time that we can't just go back and rectify.
Yeah.
So we've been making some headway, and I think we're finally getting to the point where we can start figuring out how to make the Etmores more dynamic. And part of what is upcoming is a true incentivized event that will be available to both players and monster players that have effects that enable you to go in direct head-to-head competition with one another over specific resources in the Edmores, and that is something that I'm already working on for the next update.
Exciting.
And it will be the first one of that kind. There are more that are planned. It's just I don't spend as much time there as I do on other things, so it rolls out a little slower.
Yeah.
One other quick note is that Crojas is finally working the way that she should, and her ads are now attacking, so she got a little tougher in the meantime too.
Before we just sort of show a little bit of it, we should also mention we have some new Delvings coming in Update 36 as well. I'm calling it a Numenos. I hope I'm saying that right.
It's a Numenos.
Okay. Glingant, Haud Valendil, and Ost Elendil converted into playable Delvings, as well as the Great Barrows instances, Samvrog, Thadur, and the Maze. So is this just a continued expansion of the Delving system?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. We are continuing to move the Delvings back into places where it makes sense, and making sure that anything that is a scalable instance eventually gets touched. It's going to be it's a long-term update, obviously, that we're going to continue to go pushing back through the game. It won't happen all at once, but we're setting ourselves up, or setting the game up so that we can continue to push these into different locations and get better incentivization across the board for the Delvings.
Is there a specific reason these Delvings were picked?
These are existing scalable instances, and that makes it far easier for us to make adjustments to them with the Delving system. Some of the other instances that exist inside of the game have a difficulty system already built in with multiple tiers of difficulty, and those are instances that we have not yet come up with a solution for adding Delvings into. It's the ones that only have a 1 or 2 tier split at this point that we looked at and said these are going to be the easier ones to take care of. So we wanted to make sure that we adjusted those first. Plus, there are instances that have been around probably some of the longest, and we wanted to make sure that players had an opportunity to go back and revisit those, now with a little bit more extra difficulty and a little bit extra reward.
I should not be trying to do this instant solo like this. I'm going to get raffle stomped.
It's
as
also
you
a
just
lot
said.
harder when you're talking
Yeah.
to somebody else.
Yeah. I don't think I was damaging that high priestess very much. But I just kind of wanted to show these spaces off a little bit while we talked. So let me go and turn the remaining few minutes here before I move on to the last bits of news to the community. Is there anything you want to ask Orion here before I let him go and we do some other news here for the last 5-10 minutes here?
And anything that you want to know about.
Yeah.
There is one more minor change that we're probably making to the Edinburghs that I want to just call it real quick.
Mm-hmm.
And that is in relation to crowd control, which has become, I don't want to say a hot button issue, but it has become a discussion point amongst the players and monster players. And one of the things that we're looking at is the insignias and brands that exist on both the player and monster player side provide some CC immunity. What we're likely to do before or for the U36 update is remove all but one of those.
Okay.
Put them both on a 3 to 4 minute cooldown. Extend the immunity period to about 20 to 30 seconds so that it provides a longer period where you are immune to CC, and then focus on giving the monster players more traditional CC breaking skills for the classes that don't already have them. And the reason that we want to do that is we have kind of been on we've kind of de-incentivized the use of CC to a point where it is not as viable in the Edinburghs, and we want to bring it back to the point where it has parity with other skill sets as well.
Okay, and how exactly are you going to be doing that?
By doing exactly what we just said, by
Okay.
making it so that the monster players actually have a set of skills that enable them to break out of CC, because they don't have a lot, whereas the players do. The players have, most of the players have 1 or 2 ways to get out of crowd control effects. And right now, the way that the monster players work is they have the brands that assist them, and 1 or 2 of the different classes have an easier way to get out of CC.
Okay. I could ask, I know that you're not directly involved in lag talk, but you might be able to talk a little bit about this. I can also answer your question there, Deadwood. DDO recently received an update for the lag situation, which had great results. And basically, are we going to be doing some of that work on the Lotro side as well? I could say that some of that work was specific to DDO in a way that would make it... mutual destruction there. All right. That would make it not compatible, right? It's a different system that isn't really in Lotro. That was one of the main things that was looked at here most recently on the DDO side. But as to the wider question about is the engineering team also bringing lag reduction work to the Lord of the Rings Online, the answer to that is an absolute yes. So while the specific thing that we most recently saw on the DDO side isn't particularly applicable, other parts are. And dedicated work just for Lotro in the same way that we just did for DDO is also something that we're doing, we have been doing, and will be continuing to do here in the future.
Yep, we do know some of the core issues, and the engineering team is looking into them very deeply. As Core just pointed out, that there are vast differences between DDO and Lotro. The biggest one being the fact that DDO is an encapsulated game where you don't have wide open landscapes, where you are consistently moving players around the game world and server farms to make sure that they are being tracked properly. That makes the fixing some of the issues that exist in Lotro a little more difficult, I think, than they are in DDO. But that is something that our engineering team continues to work on.
Specifically, though, that had to do with the system and the communication that happens behind the scenes. Some of it having to do with the character data footprint and, just like how much stuff you're trying to shove through a door frame here, right? So that kind of conceptual work is exactly the kind of work that's being done on the Lotro side as well, in terms of, how can deeds communicate better behind the scenes? How can some of the, do you have this thing, do you not have this thing, how that communicates behind the scenes, is some of the focus that we're talking about there. Green Tea says, any changes to the scaling system as a non-level cap character was being constantly one-shot. We had mentioned parts of that earlier, but do you have a more general question as to changes to the scaling system?
Sure. One of the pieces that I'm working on in the background is coming up with um, a better scaling of loot set that we can provide to players who are lower level getting into the End Wars. There are some shortcomings that we will never be able to overcome, and those are things like your traits, not your traits, sorry, your virtue traits. Your virtues will very likely never change from what we are able to do, just based off of your gear set. But what we can do is make it so that the gear that you can purchase initially gives you all of the baseline statistics that put you on par with a fresh 140 level player or 150 level player, whatever the level cap ends up being.
Okay.
We also want to do that for weapons as well, because if you're not level 51, you won't have your legendary item, and your legendary items won't be as powerful as they would need to be. So we want to actually come up with weapons that you can purchase that would be almost equivalent to a legendary item in the End Wars, but usable only in the End Wars.
Lyron once is not happy with the Tier 12 Delving loot providing crafting material selection boxes. Are we going to replace that with anything else, perhaps?
While there is no intention at this point to excuse me.
Greetings, traveler. How may I be of assistance?
Allergies, wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
The Sorry about that. So yeah, the crafting boxes are likely not going to change, but one of the things that we are considering is making them disenchantable for writs, so that if you get one, you don't have to stick with that. You can get a larger amount of writs by disenchanting it for the delving writs themselves.
Okay.
So that it doesn't feel as sad trombone as it currently does.
Before I let you go, where are we sitting on the crafting update?
So that's a very good question. We are, as part of U36, there are new crafting recipes going in. So that is the first new, if I recall correctly, essence updates in quite a while. So new essences will be brought in. We are on track for divorcing the professions and vocations for U37. At which point players should be able to choose what 3 individual professions they want to have, or vocations. I always screw them up in my head. And then they'll be able to purchase a 4th. That will give you the ability to have 4 different crafting lines that you can pursue. One of the other things that I'm really going to try to get in are some catch-up experiences that you can use in the form of crafting events. I don't know how close I will be able to get all of that done, but I am working on that alongside updating both the Guardian and the Hunter for the next update before, later on this year.
All right.
But yes, crafting is moving along, and we're getting there.
All right.
It has taken longer than we expected.
All right, thanks, Ryan, for joining me here today. I'm going to let you go because I've got a few more bits of news here before I wrap up the show. So let me make sure I get to that. Thanks so much for being here, and we'll talk to you again in the near future.
Take care. See you, everybody.
There we go. I did have just a couple of bits of news I want to mention before I do wrap up the show, and that is that we do have, let me see. I need to label my pages. I did want to mention that we do have free transfers from Shadowfax available through the end of the month for public login. Remember to, disband your kinship, do what you need to do, get off of Shadowfax before the end of May. You can transfer your stuff without being able to log in through the end of August, and then at that point, we might wipe the server. So make sure you do get your Shadowfax transfer done here before the end of the month. I did also want to mention we had update 35.1.3 this week. You can find the release notes over on Locher.com. I also wanted to mention that we learned today, because the person who did Gwathrenrast was out on vacation when we were putting together the notes, that one of these known issues is actually working as intended. I'm pretty sure this is the one. So that actually is working as intended. Let me see if I can call up some specific text here quick that explains it. For the final progression quest event, it's actually working as intended. Since the Boss 1 Pathfinder actually leads to the trash section for Boss 2, that's how it's supposed to work. So the breakdown for the final progression quest objective behavior, based on what boss you want to fight: Boss 1, walk forward, clear the path, defeat Boss 1. Boss 2, use the Pathfinder for Boss 1, clear the trash on the interior, and then the first stairwell, and defeat Castellan Overshures. And then bosses 3 and 4, use the Pathfinder for Boss 3 and clear the second stairwell, top floor trash, defeat Asashal and Klagord, and then defeat the Shard of Tarasar. So that's sort of working as intended, not actually busted, as it were. So, okay. We do have, let me make sure, I did want to call attention quick to our public event schedule. I did not have a page ready for that. But I did want to mention this is the final weekend of the anniversary event as well. So make sure that you get your anniversary stuff done as well. We have a whole bunch of things kind of wrapping up this week before we move on to the next. And we're in the process there. So the anniversary event gets shut off on the 15th at 3 a.m. So through Sunday, overnight into Monday morning on the eastern side anyway. You can still log in through April 21st, or April 1st or last day of March, rather, of next year to pick up your 16th anniversary gift, but the anniversary event runs through Sunday. So please do make sure that you have done that. I did want to call up, I guess I could put this up real quick as well, because we have some other things that I could mention about the public event schedule here, and this is the relevant bit that we're looking at. So we have got things happening here. So 25% crafting XP is this weekend as well. So if you're a crafter, be aware of that. Virtue tier increase is happening on the 17th. And so the virtue tier increase is going to go up by 1 to 86. And we have the legendary item reward track season 6 beginning on the 17th. That would be, what day of the week is that? That's Wednesday, 10 a.m. next Wednesday. Make sure you claim your season 5 rewards before it hits on Wednesday. And we'll be doing social media and probably even put something in the launcher to that end as well. But please do make sure you're aware of that. And then that same week, right next week, someone had actually mentioned in the forums, when's the next Buried Treasure event? And I thought it wasn't in the schedule, but it is in the schedule. We have one next week. So a Buried Treasure event is going to begin on the 18th at 10 a.m. Eastern. And you can find, the rest of it here as well. But we got stuff happening in the coming weeks. So quite a bit. Let me see what we have for final questions then before I wrap things up. Are we considering making the Homestead steed slightly bigger for man-sized characters to make it look more like a drought horse? Yes, that should be in the next game update. Potentially update 36, but we'll see if we have a patch between then and now. But yes, the intention is to make that the size of the regular mounts. I think that's it, and we've hit the time. So, can I share some more information about the Castle Crasher deed for the new raid? No, sorry. I neither know the answer, nor could I probably comment on it. Sorry. If I can get you an answer, I will here in the future, but I don't know. So, All right, thanks for watching Court of the Rings here on twitch.tv/LotroStream. We've got the Tolkien Professor up next. We have got Druid's Fire after that. We have got a full schedule over on twitch.tv/LotroStream. We also do have the new forums. If you've not been able to check out forums.lotro.com, please do consider it. We've seen a bit of a rejuvenated spike in traffic and posting and excitement and threads and profile posts. Some people are using it like blogs and things as well. And you know, it's in our first week, so we have a little follow-up polish to do, but it's largely working great. So please do go to forums.lotro.com if you would be interested. We'll be doing a second preview in the future here for Update 36, and like you saw, next week's going to be super busy. So hope you're having a good one. Hope you're having a great time at the Lord of the Rings Online, and I'll talk to you again next week. Bye-bye.